Hello, everybody, and welcome to week 4 of Critical Disability. You're watching the course Housekeeping video, and our topic for this week is disability justice or the disability justice movement. Before we get to all of the content videos, I do have some reminders and also an announcement about Black History Month and also something about current events related to disability. So my first reminder is to complete your week 3 participation survey. If you haven't already done that, please do so by Wednesday, February 12th by 11:59 p.m. Again, remember, those participation surveys count towards 15 points towards your course participation grades, so please do take them seriously and make sure you do complete them all. Again, most of you are going to receive full credit, but just healthy reminder, make sure you do them and don't forget about them. All right. My second reminder is we do have a primary assignment for this week. We're doing our first discussion prompt. You should have seen an announcement go out. Sorry if there were duplicate announcements. I'm having sometimes some technical issues where an announcement goes out early when it's not intended to. So if you're getting your inbox cluttered, I do apologize for that. But you should have seen an announcement about group assignments. And there is somewhere between 4 to 6 people inside each group. We watched, me and the reader for this class, hi Adalzia, helped to put together the groups. We used the videos to look at sort of things current work you were doing, areas and interests and passions, and we tried to put folks together who had similar goals, educational or otherwise. So hopefully it'll lead to a richer, meaningful discussion and hopefully build community as well. All right. The first discussion prompt is what does the disability justice movement offer that can't be found within disability rights spaces? So kind of going back to what week 3's topic was. From your perspective, how can a disability justice perspective help us to become better disability allies and also better social welfare practitioners, educators, scholars, and so on? All right. So this first discussion prompt is entirely asynchronous. So each student needs to write 2 posts. So what I recommend is if you can consume the videos as early in the week as possible, go in, write your first prompt, let some of your group members write their information, and then come and write your second prompt. I get this question all the time, like, does each prompt need to be somehow unique and like its own brand new idea? And the answer I always say is like, well, obviously, if you're writing your first prompt, you're probably coming in with some sort of idea. It's going to be fresh and new, but it's completely okay to be responding to one of your group members' ideas and say, oh yeah, I really agree with that. And I see it in this way, or I've experienced it in this way. So absolutely, it's completely okay to take an idea that someone shared and expound on it, add to it. So again, I hope that eases some anxieties. And remember, this is meant to be a dialogue and a conversation. I'm not expecting your answers to look like you're writing a short essay for something like our quizzes. I'm expecting it will sound and look like a conversation you would have if you were in a small group inside of a classroom space. And not all of you are like carefully writing out your perfect answer like you would on a quiz. So enjoy them, get to know each other, have some freedom with them. All right. Okay. So those are my 2 announcements. So again, make sure you get your 2 prompts written for discussion prompt number 1. Don't forget week 4 participation survey and complete all of that by Sunday, February 16th by 11:59 p.m. All right. So it's February, everybody. And so February is Black History Month. So it's time to honor and celebrate Black Americans who have made a huge impact in us moving forward as a nation. These are folks who are often left out of the history books and their contributions, particularly Black people with disabilities. When their stories are told, rarely do they mention their disability. For example, many people know that Harriet Tubman led enslaved people to freedom through the Underground Railroad. But did you also know that she was disabled? Black History Month is intertwined with disability history. In fact, the disability rights movement was influenced by the civil rights movement. Several Black leaders played a critical role and continue to play critical roles in both of those movements. And so I'm going to show you a few images and then give you a little bit of description to honor some of these folks. And so in this first image, you can see a man center and frame, a Black man with sort of kind of like a leisure suit and sitting in a wheelchair. If you look closely in the image, you can see that it has the same light post here on Berkeley campus. So I'm assuming this image is coming from our campus. And also in the wheelchair to this person's left is Judith Heumann, and there are additional people also scattered in the background. All right, so Brad Lomax. So when Brad was in college, he developed multiple sclerosis. As a wheelchair user, he encountered barriers every day accessing public services and spaces. Brad wanted to ensure the Black community, especially those living with disabilities, had better access to social services. He learned about the Berkeley Center for Independent Living and approached its director, Ed Roberts. Brad proposed they combine their efforts, and soon after, the East Oakland Center for Independent Living was formed. In 1977, Brad, along with a group of disability rights activists, occupied a federal building, you've heard this story already, in San Francisco for 25 days, pressuring the federal government to sign regulations to enforce Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. Brad enlisted the support of the Black Panther Party, who brought hot meals and supplies to demonstrators each day. Brad's activism helped to bridge that civil rights and disability rights movement space. All right. In this next image, you see a picture of a Black woman wearing a button-up shirt. So all these images are black and white, by the way, in a seated position, smiling into the camera. This is a picture of Johnny Lacey. After getting diagnosed with polio, Johnny became paralyzed at 19. In college, she frequently faced discrimination. College administrators told her she couldn't be a speech therapist because of her disability. She was excluded from her graduation ceremony. At a time when few legal protections existed for people with disabilities, Johnny's passion for disability rights was fueled. She quickly became a leader in the independent living movement and helped found the Berkeley Center for Independent Living. Throughout her life, Johnny educated and engaged communities in conversations about racism, ableism, and intersectionality. Johnny often spoke about feeling excluded from the Black community because she had a disability, and from the disability community because she was a person of color. The conversations she ignited within the disability community and beyond continue today as we work to dismantle systemic oppression in its various forms. Particularly, this topic is vital and super relevant to today's conversation about disability justice, because it's very much picking up on that work. All right, in this next picture is a picture of Fannie Lou Hamer. Again, it's a profile picture of someone in a seated position, looks like maybe giving testimony to an audience, to a panel. And here's a little description. Here's a quote. "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired." During a pivotal moment in the civil rights history, Fannie said those powerful words at the 1964 Democratic National Convention in front of a televised audience, and the nation paid attention. At 45 years old, Fannie became a tireless advocate, community organizer, passionate advocate for civil and voting rights. Deeply committed, Fannie put her own body in harm's way for racial justice. During a protest in 1963, Fannie was arrested and beaten so badly by local law enforcement that she became permanently disabled. Fannie is remembered as one of the most powerful voices of the civil rights movement and a key contributor to it. Her incredible legacy is memorialized through numerous parks, community centers, and organizations that are named after her. And in the final image is a close-up photograph of Maya Angelou. And this might be something a lot of folks maybe don't know, is that as a child, Maya developed selective mutism. For 5 years, she did not speak. Despite experiencing childhood trauma and anxiety disorder and racism in America through segregation and Jim Crow, she persevered and became one of the most influential voices in the world. Her voice to advocate for people of color and women, Maya became an internationally known author, poet, singer, professor, and civil rights activist. Over her 50-year career, she received prestigious awards, including 2 NAACP Image Awards, a Pulitzer Prize Award, a Presidential Medal of Freedom. Maya passed away in 2014, but her powerful words and legacy live on. So again, as we celebrate Black History Month, let's remember the contributions that Black people have made and continue to make in the civil rights and the disability rights movements. Again, the disability rights movements would not exist without these contributions. Again, these are the effects of why we're able to take transportation and have accessible education, housing, employment, and many, many more. All right. So again, that's just a very brief shout out to honor Black History Month, and particularly so many leaders, educators, activists who have straddled a line between disability rights and civil rights. All right. So I have one more slide that I want to talk about. We're living under a new presidential administration, and with it, things have been happening very fast. And so I know that a lot of people, maybe some folks are consuming news in a different way. Maybe it's increasing. Maybe you had to take a step back for your own well-being. But there was something that's happened that I feel is so relevant to this class topic that I needed to take a moment just to point it out. And so on January 30th, in remarks at the White House, President Trump blamed a tragic and deadly plane crash that occurred near the Ronald Reagan National Airport on people with disabilities employed by the Federal Aviation Administration. Soon after the president made those comments, multiple news agencies reported that the air traffic control tower was understaffed at the time of the crash. Despite this additional news, the White House continued to double down in their claims that diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts and hiring were the reason to blame for this crash, particularly naming disabled people and people with intellectual disabilities as the reason why this occurred. So again, this is a quote from the official statement that the White House put out. This shocking event follows problematic and likely illegal decisions during the Obama and Biden administrations that minimized merit and competence in the Federal Aviation Administration, or the FAA. The Obama administration implemented a biographical questionnaire at the FAA to shift the hiring focus away from objective aptitude. During my first term, my administration raised standards to achieve the highest standards of safety and excellence, but the Biden administration egregiously rejected merit-based hiring, requiring all executive departments and agencies to implement dangerous, quote, diversity, equity, and inclusion tactics, specifically recruiting individuals with severe intellectual disabilities into the FAA. Again, so much of what is said in that is factually incorrect, but I will let the voices of folks from national disability organizations respond to that. And so here's one quote in response to these statements from the White House. The National Organization of Nurses with Disabilities, or the NOND, said, NOND dramatically and strongly disagrees with the statements made by the federal administration that people with disabilities create unsafe conditions for others. The government's statement is appalling, dehumanizing, and blatantly discriminatory. The NOND supports DEI, which is crucial to promoting the full inclusion of marginalized populations, including people with disabilities. Research indicates that with age, the incidence of disability and chronic health conditions increases. Disability is not about those of us who are disabled now. It's about our society at large. And so here is additional quote. This one's coming from Colin Killick, the executive director of Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. Quote, "One of the biggest factors keeping people with disabilities out of the workforce is baseless stigma around our ability to do our jobs. Despite ample data showing the capability and productivity of disabled workers, disclosing a disability still makes job applicants 26% less likely to even get a preliminary interview. Programs like the one President Trump attacked have been a part of the federal government's work to eliminate that stigma. It is deeply disappointing to see our government now deciding instead to make it worse." Again, there are many other quotes from varieties of different organizations, including the American Association with People with Disabilities, the American Council of the Blind, the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, which I just read a quote from, the Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund, and more, have come out and publicly calling those statements into question. Yes. So again, I think this is very important to be aware of. It's super relevant to this topic of critical disability, and that disability isn't, again, there are the non-disabled and the disabled people. That this diversity and equity and inclusion is really about creating a workforce that reflects our American society. It's about ensuring that people who are qualified to do the work are allowed to do the work. So again, super important, be paying attention to these things. And as other things come up over this semester related to disability news at the local, national level, I will try to highlight things of this nature so we can tie it into our coursework and probably also our discussions that you will do in community together. All right. So thank you for your attention for this course housekeeping video. It's a little bit longer than the ones I normally create. All right. So I'll see you in the next video where we begin our conversation about the disability justice movement. All right. I'll see you there. Bye-bye.